This week on Royally Us, Lilibet Diana is officially recognized in the line of royal succession.
Boom.
Plus, find out why Sarah Ferguson felt unworthy after not being invited to Prince William and Duchess Kate's wedding.
And the thing is, I'm not going to go down to this point.
And we sit down with Nick Bowen from True Royalty TV to get all the latest on 4 new exclusive documentaries being released next month.
This documentary, Diana, Who Do You Think She Was, is a really, really interesting take on Diana's life.
We've got that plus so much more in today's Royally Us. Hello to our fellow royal lovers. I'm your host, Joe Drake, here with my lovely co-host, Molly Mulshine. Hi, Molly.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I just spilled my water before we started, but it's just water and it's probably going to clean my carpet. So.
Oh, that's good. Win-win.
That's how my morning's going. How's yours?
I actually spilled on myself right before I came on here. That is so crazy. Must be something astrological. I had to blow dry my shirt. So that's wild.
Oh, there's something going on.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, let's get into what you guys had to say about last week's show. Joanne O says, for a couple that wanted privacy, all they wanted is to be in the media. This seems to be a very common thread with Harry and Meghan, yes?
Yeah, and I will beat this drum again and again and again. They never said they wanted privacy. It never came from their mouths.
Right, and you brought this up a few weeks ago, reminded me, because I think the narrative from fans and just people that want to have an opinion is this, no offense to Joanne, thank you for watching, but I agree, there was never this like, we want privacy, period, you know?
Right. And it is, I get why so many people think that, because it's an easy assumption to make and it's repeated over and over again. So yeah, it is easy to think that that's the way it is, but I think they just wanted to control the narrative. They wanted to feel like they could be free to, you know, issue denials and lawsuits whenever they want to. I think that's the reason why they wanted to leave.
And I think I've mentioned this on the show before, but Prince Harry obviously has been in the public eye since he was born. Meghan Markle was an actress, was in show business. These are people that are used to not being private. So I think it's not, as much as they want privacy sometimes, they're used to being in the public eye. And I think they have come to terms with that.
Yeah, and I think it's also a little bit of an addiction for most people
Right. Yes.
to get into the public eye, because, you know, look at Meghan and Harry right now. We have not seen either of them in weeks. And if you want to be private, you can be private. It just goes to show you, when Will and Kate first got married, they retreated to Wales for like over a year. If you really want to be like Demi Moore and Bruce Willis, move to Idaho and raise your family away from everyone. But it's hard. I think it gets hard once you're used to, like you said, used to that public eye. I think once in a while you're like, hey, wait a minute, I'm still here. Like,
yeah, 100%.
And it makes sense.
I totally agree. Crash Into Me 1000. I love that. It's like an old AOL screen name. They said, we've only had one prince in the USA and he sang Purple Rain. So this is going back to like us talking about people considering Meghan Markle our American royalty. People have very strong opinions about who is considered, quote, royalty in the United States. This person is obviously talking about the one and only prince.
And Crash Into Me 1000, you are 100% right. That is the only prince we have. And maybe Michael Jackson's son, who is also named Prince.
Right.
That's our royalty. Case closed. Shut the book on that. I agree.
Christina said, these two are so wrong about me and you, because, you know, there's a lot of people in the comments that they were wrong. They said, Christina says, Meghan is in the driver's seat. Because last week we were talking about how with Harry coming out with the book that he's actually the one in the driver's seat because he seems to be making more concrete decisions than she is.
Right. And it's not like he became controversial when they got married. I mean, he's always been outspoken, rebellious, sort of a scandal magnet. I think we need to give Harry credit where credit is due. He is his own man. He's doing his own thing. I think it's really, you know, it's easy to blame it all on Meghan, like, but it just doesn't ring true to me.
And we talked about, you brought up the sexist issue last week, which I thought was a good point. It's easy to be like, oh, Meghan came in and really messed this all up and is now like controlling Harry. It's like that old narrative.
Right. It's like Yoko broke up the Beatles. No, the Beatles
Right.
broke up the Beatles. They hated each other by the time Let It Be came around. It
Right.
wasn't Yoko's fault.
Right. All right. Well, there have been some royal updates as always this week. So let's move on to our royal roundup. Molly, I'm not sure if you saw, this was an interesting story to wake up to on Monday morning this week. So apparently, Lilibet Diana, Harry and Meghan's daughter, is now officially on the website for the royal line of succession. But apparently, as of Sunday, July 25th, she wasn't, because Chris Shipp from ITV noticed it and talked about it on a podcast. And the next morning, it was changed. So this was like a quick fix on their part.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people were looking for a conspiracy theory here.
Right.
And it just wasn't really there. I think it's just a case of people not wanting to update their website. And it's just annoying. It's just a task that gets pushed to the bottom. Now, apparently they did update it much more quickly for Prince George, Prince Louis, and even Charlotte, and even Archie were up within a week or so each time. And Lilibet's been a little longer, but I don't know. I mean, this feels like a nothing burger to me. What do you think?
I agree. I think it was sort of like someone who was in the know mentioned the error and they were like, oh yeah, oops. And then like changed it. Because to be honest with you, I wasn't really aware of this website. It's not something I like check often. And obviously we all know the line of succession and Prince Charles, Prince William, the kid, blah, blah, blah. So obviously Lilibet Diana is really far down there. So it's not necessarily like it needed to happen right away. I just think I agree with you about the conspiracy theory. I think because of the interview they did talking about Archie and sort of being shunned, that it makes it seem like they're being shunned even more, but I'm not sure if it was intentional.
Right. Once again, I will say if they wanted to, this is something that it would have been good to preemptively think about. Like, do we want this to become a scandalous story or not? Probably not. So let's just update it ASAP. And they didn't. So that was, I think, a miss on their part.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, believe it or not, there was never a royal website until probably the last 20 years. So like there have been many princes and princesses and kings and queens who were not listed on royalfamily.gov.uk or whatever.
Right.
And they still took the throne.
100%.
So yeah.
I'm just like not sure. Again, like we're so aware of the line of succession. Is it necessary?
Yeah, it's like
know.
I don't think it matters. I think people are just looking for drama.
For sure. Well, speaking of drama, let's talk about Fergie. We haven't talked about her since I've been co-hosting with you, and I've always been a secret fan of Fergie. I know she's been a controversial figure in the royal family. I know that everyone sort of pitted her and Diana against each other. Sound familiar? But she recently gave an interview with Town and Country magazine where she sort of brought up some past feelings she had about certain events in the royal family, one of which was not being invited to Prince William and Duchess Kate's wedding. Had you heard about this story before?
Yes, and I was cracking up when I read this because she conveniently doesn't mention why she wasn't invited to the wedding. Like,
well, right. And I also feel like, and I'm sure the royal fans out there will agree with me, I've heard her tell this story before. She wasn't invited. She went to Thailand. Like, she wanted to be far away from it all. Her daughters went and enjoyed. They wore the hats. Like, I feel like she's giving this interview to Town and Country as if it's new news, and it's not.
Yeah. And it's like, first of all, and by the way, I am also a fan of Fergie just because of the entertainment value.
Right.
And
There's
I also have
about her that I love.
Yeah, I also have my own conspiracy theory that Harry is actually taking pages out of the Fergie playbook, which is just he's like Fergie 2.0 to me. But like, let me get out my tiny violin that you had to go to Thailand.
Right.
And also the reason why she wasn't invited is because she got caught trying to sell access to the royal family for $750,000 less than a year earlier.
Right. And like, obviously you weren't going to be invited. People are snubbed from wedding lists for much less. And if you're trying
Right.
to bribe someone for something so egregious and doing that, it's like, duh, you're not going to get invited.
And this is like also reminds me of something that Harry will be doing 20, 30 years from now as well. Like giving an interview
Right.
where he talks about how upset he was because of the consequences of his own actions. Like, I just think this
And
is
like,
why I feel
yeah,
he's Fergie 2.0.
yeah, you might not be wrong because he's probably not going to get invited to like Charlotte's wedding. There's going to be a story, you know?
Right.
I do think, to be fair, I think maybe why this was drudged up again in the Town and Country interview was because she did talk about how kind it was that she was invited to Harry and Meghan's wedding, which again, it reminds me of like, oh, well, Harry and Meghan were the nice ones to invite Fergie, but William and Kate didn't. But again, to your point, she did something so egregious only a year before.
Right.
Time had passed. I think wounds were healed by 2018.
Also,
Um,
allegedly, Prince Philip really disliked her
really?
until the day he died. So I think it could have also had something to do with the fact that he was a bit older by the time Meghan and Harry got married. So he couldn't really wield that same influence of being like, no, she's not coming. This is
Oh,
all speculation that I've read. Like
okay.
this is
But that
something
sounds right.
yeah, it kind of does. Yeah.
I think I think it's interesting that she said that she was nervous showing up to Harry and Meghan's wedding, which of course, why wouldn't she be? Because it's sort of like coming back to the in-laws. But she said she was received well from the crowd and receiving a lot of applause, and people were actually yelling her name, which kind of goes back to what you were saying about like fame being addicting. I think she wanted that sort of pat on the back from the public.
Yeah. And I don't blame her. I mean, we all want that pat on the back.
Right.
Uh, I don't know if I would have gone to the wedding, but it's it's interesting how close she is with Harry and Meghan and how close all of the Yorks are or seem to be with Harry and Meghan. Because I want to know, when are Harry and Meghan going to deal with the Andrew question? They have never talked about the allegations against Prince Andrew, who obviously is Fergie's ex-husband, who she still lives with and co-parents with. This is something I really want to see how they navigate, especially with Harry's upcoming memoir. That is going to be interesting. Is he just going to ignore it? Is he going to talk about it? Because it seems like those two families are very, very close compared, especially to everyone else now.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And I do think it's interesting because we have sort of been beating around the bush about the subject for many episodes on Royally Us, but somehow he has gotten away with it not being the focus. I think he's probably counting his lucky stars that people are obsessed with William, Kate, Harry, and Meghan so-called rift, because there's other things to focus on when there's a real story that no one is addressing.
Right. When are we going to do something about that? It's
I don't
crazy.
know. And I don't think, I didn't read it in full yet, the Town and Country article, but I don't think it was mentioned. I haven't seen
Yeah,
anywhere that it was mentioned.
I think if it was mentioned, it would have been front page news everywhere.
Everywhere.
And it's the kind of thing where, you know, when you're interviewing a famous person, they do tell you things that are off limits beforehand, especially if it's a cover story. And you can either play ball with that or not. But I think that's probably what happened with this interview. They probably said no mention of this, you know, but we got some nice equestrian chic outfit photos.
We
So
definitely did. Did you like
silver
that?
lining. Yeah, I'm just going to do a quick shameless plug. Speaking of equestrians,
Please do.
I have a song that I just released. It's called Horse Girl. And I think the viewers might like it because it's very equestrian and it mentions Princess Anne. So I think
Oh my
everyone check that
God.
out. But it
I
reminded
love
me of that.
I love that. I can't wait to listen.
If everyone looks on my Instagram and Twitter, you'll see it.
Okay, perfect. I can't wait. Going back to what you said though about her saying certain things are off limits, you're totally right. Like that is what happened. So apparently they obeyed what she said. Let's assume that she got what she wanted there. But I do want to figure out like when we're really going to address that story,
Right. Like, are we just going to let it go away? Are we just going to, pretend it never happened? How is it possible that that we can't hold this person accountable when we kind of know what the deal is? It's
Right.
very confusing. I think whenever Charles takes the throne, we will see some closure around this. Even if it's just never really seeing Andrew again, but
Right. I think you
not
could
that
be right.
they're
I
going
think
to murder him, but
no, right. But I think you're onto something, because I do think when the queen passes, then they may act more swiftly to like figure out how to do something. Again,
yeah.
they're not going to get rid of him, but like there's something that will happen. And I think maybe plans are already in the works as to how to deal with it in the future.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see them navigate it. I think, so far the do nothing approach has not been great and it has not served them well. And it's interesting to see that they're still going for the do nothing approach.
Definitely. Well, let's move on to a happy story, because I'm not sure if you saw, but Lady Kitty Spencer was married recently, and she is Princess Diana's niece. A, she's stunning, and B, all the dresses. This was a really fun story to follow, and the pictures were absolutely gorgeous.
It was incredible. I had no idea that this was coming up. I knew about
Same.
her. Yeah, I knew about her relationship with him. I know about her and her sisters. I love looking at their Instagrams and just seeing their super glam lifestyle. These dresses, oh my God. They were all Dolce and Gabbana. The main one had the really high neck and the shoulders and the bodice with like the boning that you could see. Oh my God, I thought that was so incredible, especially after a year when we've all been looking at sweatpants. I was like, yes, this is what the people need.
100%. What I was thinking about this story is like, should we be following Princess Diana's family? Because this could be like a whole sub category of the royal family that would be really interesting to follow. Because I'll be honest, I wasn't really aware of her until this story. I think her name kind of sounds familiar, but until she got married and the pictures were released, I was like, wait a second, this could be a fun. I'm not sure if she wants the attention, but it seems like Princess Diana's Spencer lineage would be fun to follow. And we actually talk about it with Nick Bullen coming up, because he's doing a whole documentary on Diana and the Spencers.
Oh, amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really do think they are interesting, but it's very tough to see what their goal is in terms of their public profile, because they are aristocratic, and the age-old aristocratic rule is you're only in the press when you're born, when you get married, and when you die. Like, you're supposed to try to be very private. That's how it always has been for the upper classes in the UK. But she's a Dolce and Gabbana spokesmodel. She sits front row at all of their shows. She does a lot of collaboration with them. The other two girls are, pretty much the same way. They're always doing a lot of different like fashion work. So they're sort of teetering on this line of like influencer and aristocrat, which
Right.
is
That's right. I was just going to say, I think you're totally right about the aristocrat thing, but she's at this point with the whole Dolce and Gabbana thing and all of these dresses and these photos being released. I think you're right too about the influencer. It's like she might have a career that is blossoming in a way that we don't expect.
right. I think we're all lucky that D&G did all of the dresses, because I think otherwise we would not be seeing these incredible photos of them. I think because the fact that they've been giving interviews about it and talking about it means that it was sort of a business deal. So,
True.
and which is interesting to me because her husband is a billionaire.
Yeah.
So I'm like, they could have bought their own dresses and not had the press intrusion. So that's where I'm like, this is interesting. Like, this is the push and pull of the way that the young Spencer nieces are sort of living their lives,
It kind of goes back to the through line, I guess, of this episode, is this like addiction to fame. She's gorgeous. She sees other family members getting tons of attention. Maybe she's like, what about me?
Yeah. But the thing is, she is taking a very old school approach, because she and her sisters are not doing the like makeup tutorials. They're not like, oh, look at what I eat in a day. They're never going to do that. They're keeping it very classy, for lack of a better word. They're keeping it very old school, sort of, you know, like I feel like she is sort of, you know, spiritually descended from Grace Kelly in that way, where
100%.
she's just like, yeah, she's like, I am modern day princess. I'm not going to really talk ever, but I'm going to have amazing outfits and we can talk about that.
And I feel like that's a good way to go. Do it old school, sit front row at the fashion shows, do Vogue covers, do maybe a couple of runways, and then other than that, like go back and live your fabulous life.
Right. I mean, teetering on the line of aristocrat and influencer, that's a good line to be teetering. I'm, you know, well done, Lady Kitty Spencer.
Definitely. I also love that name, Lady Kitty Spencer. It's fantastic.
Right. But did you notice that
this is actually the perfect transition because I got to speak with Nick Mullen a little bit ago, and he chatted with me about 2 new exclusive documentaries coming out. Actually, we talked about 4, but this week we're going to give you a sneak peek into 2 of them, and one of which is how Diana's lineage is just as royal. The Spencers come from a very long line of royal lineage, and he talked to me all about it. So let's take a look. Well, Nick, thank you so much for joining us. We love chatting with royal experts every week, and you seem to be one of the prime royal experts because you are involved with True Royalty TV. For those out there that don't know what that is, tell everyone what True Royalty TV is all about.
True Royalty TV is essentially, well, it's been called the Netflix for royal programs. So if you're into royalty, doesn't matter whether it's Russian czars, Chinese emperors, Harry and Meghan, the Tudors, you know, royalty across the ages and across the world. We've got hundreds of hours about all of those people and all of those times. So you can dive in and you can binge on all things royal on True Royalty TV.
I love that. That is incredible. You actually have 4 new exclusive documentaries coming out in the month of August. And August is right around the corner. I can't believe how quickly summer is going. But we will be glued to our TVs to watch all of these, one of which is called Diana, Who Do You Think She Was? What exactly are you exploring in this? Are we going to learn new things about Princess Diana that we've never known before?
Yeah, so this documentary, Diana, Who Do You Think She Was, is a really, really interesting take on Diana's life. And of course, at the end of the month, it's the anniversary of her death. Now, who can believe it? It's going to be 24 years this year, I think. But I don't know whether you have a show in the States called Who Do You Think You Are?
Yeah.
Okay, so Who Do You Think You Are does incredibly well over here. And Who Do You Think She Was sort of steals a little bit of the clothes of that documentary idea. And we go back into Diana's life and we look at the story of where she came from. Because the Spencers, her family, Lady Diana Spencer, she was, are one of the oldest families in Britain. In many ways, much more British than the British royal family. And it goes back into her life and to look at the dynasty of the amazing sort of Spencer women that came before her, and also sort of a lot of the men that were ahead of her. But the Spencer women are particularly fascinating. So we have, we've gone way, way back with this documentary. And do you remember a movie last year that won an Oscar called The Favourite, which was Olivia Colman?
Fantastic.
Yeah. So Olivia Colman's lover, Queen Anne's lover in that, was a Spencer woman.
Really?
Yeah. So way back then. Do you remember a movie called The Duchess, which was, she was a Spencer woman. So all of these great women dotted through history were Spencer women. And Diana is a long line of amazing Spencer women. And so that's what this documentary does. It takes you back into the world of incredible Spencers.
I love those. You learn something new every day. This is my favorite fun fact. I'm going to tell all my friends. So I read in the description for this that it was like, is Diana more royal than the royals? I interpreted that as like all of the good deeds that she did as sort of the philanthropist and all, you know, the wonderful things she did for the AIDS epidemic and children around the world. But I guess we're talking more about the lineage, right? Like you said, the dynasty.
Yeah, completely. We're going right back in history to look at where Diana came from, the family she came from, and it's the stories are fantastic in that her family started off as sheep farmers. They were sort of sheep farmers in a rural part of Britain, and they became incredibly rich sheep farmers. And that's when they moved to Althorpe House, which is where she's buried now. And it's the story from then. It's the story through this great lineage of women. Even her grandmother was one of the ladies in waiting to the Queen Mother, and so she, it was her grandmother and the Queen Mother, Lady Ruth Fermoy, and the Queen Mother, who put together the marriage of Charles and Diana. So it's it's a great romp through the history of the Spencer family.
Wow, that I cannot wait to watch this. Obviously, you just mentioned, I think we've sort of discovered over the years that the royal family, they were probably pleased that Diana came from this lineage, yes? That she wasn't just a commoner.
Yeah, I think very much so. Look, the Spencers and the Windsors knew each other very well. Diana was born right next door, in fact, on the Queen's estate in Norfolk. So that estate where Harry and William and the Queen and Prince Charles had that final showdown before Harry left for America was a place called Sandringham, and that's where Diana was born. So they knew each other incredibly well. The families have been interconnected for a long time. So yeah, I think it was very much a sort of probably the last of the dynastic marriages.
Wow, incredible. Another documentary you have coming out on August 15th is Anne the Princess Royal at 70. I'm fascinated by this because I'm a fan of the royal family in general, but I'm also a fan of The Crown on Netflix, which has been a huge international success. And as we've discovered, I feel like Anne has new sort of attention and a spotlight on her because of her portrayal in The Crown. Do you think she's aware of her newfound fame because of this?
I'm sure Princess Anne is aware of her newfound fame from The Crown, but I don't think she'll care one bit about it. I mean, I've been lucky enough to film with her on quite a few occasions, and she is absolute dynamite. She is exactly what you see in The Crown in many ways, that sort of stuff and nonsense, takes no prisoners, suffers no fools. It's exactly how she is. She's incredibly hardworking, and she is, I think, the archetypal royal. And what you find in this documentary, sort of Anne at 70, is we go back and we tell her story and we find out all about her. And there's amazing things like, there was an attempt on her life. She was kidnapped driving back to Buckingham Palace. Someone stopped a car and tried to break into the car, shot her driver, shot her bodyguard. I mean, fortunately didn't kill anyone. But then when the attacker tried to pull Anne out of the car, where it took him moments away from Buckingham Palace, he grabbed hold of her, pointed a gun at her and said, "Get out of the car." And she replied, "Not bloody likely," and fought him off. And so this is just this great, we learn these incredible facts about a woman who isn't very well known around the world, but is the epitome of a British princess.
I love that story. Well, you just said she's keeps a low profile, she's not that well known around the world. How do you think she's been able to do that for so long? I mean, she's been in the royal family, 70 years.
The Princess Anne is incredibly low profile, and it's what she wants. She didn't give her children titles, even though they could have them, and she has never ever courted the press. And I think it is this interesting thing that you can look at with different members of the British royal family. Certain members have undoubtedly courted the press, and if you live by the sword, you sometimes die by the sword. And Anne's view is, I'm nothing special. I am just doing a job. And she's very much her father's daughter, which is she sort of can't quite understand why anybody would be interested in her. So she just gets on with the job and isn't bothered about whether she's on the front pages or not. She's not chasing fashion. She's wearing clothes that she wore 30 years ago. And I was interviewing her for a TV program a few years ago. And she talked about how the family develops. And she had a great line, which is, the British royal family like evolution, not revolution. And I thought that was quite a clever line as well. So Anne is my evolution, not revolution.
Well, that's what I feel like fans of The Crown are discovering, as you just said, with that great line and how she responded to almost being kidnapped, there's a tenacity and a sort of just wonderful personality below that low profile that I think people are really sort of discovering and loving. Do you think that the other members of the royal family have a good relationship with her?
Oh, very much so. She's incredibly close to the Queen. Obviously, she's the Queen's only daughter. And I think since the Duke of Edinburgh's died, she and the Queen have spent a lot more time together. But I suppose you can see that the royal family had two sets of children, or the Queen had two sets of children. Yeah, Anne and Charles were very close in age, and then Andrew and Edward came later. So there's a sort of difference in age between them, but I think she is very much at the heart of that family. And I think what's really interesting in the documentary is the princesses that are perhaps best known in America, whether it be Diana or Kate or Meghan, or even Fergie, if you remember sort of the Duchess of York, they're all women who married in, and they weren't blood princesses. Right. Anne is a true blood princess. And a bit like Princess Margaret, who also did very well in The Crown and became very popular in The Crown. What you learn in this documentary is what it is to be born a princess. And there aren't many of those around. So she's a fascinating character to delve into.
Yeah, definitely. That's such an interesting point. Obviously the women that married into the family have been given way more of a spotlight, like the four that you mentioned. And the real royal princess, Anne, has somehow achieved a low profile over the last 70 years. And as you said too, that's how she wants it. So good on her. I'm curious, because you have interviewed her often, what do you think she thinks of the Harry and Meghan departure?
No, that's a good thing. So I don't know, because clearly she's never told me. But I would hazard a guess that she's pretty shocked at the whole situation. Right. Princess Anne, back to being a born blood princess, is all about duty to the crown. And you watch The Crown and you see how important duty to the crown is to that family. And I think Anne's view would be, we're nothing special. We're just here doing a job. We are public servants, and you've just got to get on and support the Queen and support the monarch. And I think she probably was aghast at the departure, because it sort of it goes against everything that they're brought up to do, which is to serve the crown.
Right. That sounds like she might be more of a Prince William person. Not that she has to pick a side, but Prince William is very much more about the duty and what is expected of being a royal. Do you know if she has a very close relationship with her nephews, or it's a little bit more?
I think as a family, they don't come into contact with each other a lot. They're super busy. Anne is the busiest of all the members of the royal family and is working, pretty well every day. So I think, like lots of us, they get together at Christmas, they get together at Easter. There are moments when they come together. So I'm sure they're not phoning and texting each other every day. But but I think, the whole family really respects the way Princess Anne operates. And like you say, I don't think she'd ever pick sides. But I think what she is totally clear about is, you as a prince or princess have one job, and that's to support the monarch. So that probably in many ways tells you where her loyalties lie. And, as you say, William is following the route of the crown, Anne is following the route of the crown. Harry and Meghan have chosen a celebrity life in California.
When he initially told me about this documentary, Molly, I thought he was telling me it was like, is Diana just as royal as the others? And I thought he was talking about like her being like the philanthropist and so charitable and like Mother Earth. But he was really talking about the royal lineage in her family, which I sort of knew about, but there were some really interesting things that I never knew.
Yeah, like they go back further than the Windsors. They're actually more English than the Windsors. And I think that was why Earl Spencer, her brother, felt so comfortable sort of giving that eulogy that was so famous at her funeral, where he sort of called out the royal family, and it was super controversial. And I was thinking, it's kind of like when Dakota Johnson went on Ellen and was like,
Oh my God. I'm obsessed with this. Okay, go ahead.
You know what I mean? Because Ellen is like the Hollywood power broker. And Dakota
Right.
Johnson is an actress. Yes, she's done some big movies, but she's not as powerful as Ellen. But she's got Melanie Griffith and Tippi Hedren. She's got this lineage. So she's like,
yes.
guess what, Ellen? I did invite you to my birthday and you didn't come. So I feel
That's
like
brilliant.
it's an
I'm obsessed with
interesting
this
parallel.
Yes. Because it's sort of like, not even sort of, it is that confidence of like coming from this power structure that's like, well, since I come from this lineage, I feel confident enough to say this to one of the most powerful people in Hollywood.
Right. And Earl Spencer is like, you can't take my estate away. You can't really take my title away. Like, also, it's the 20th century. I don't really need the title anyway. So I'm going to say what I want to say. So yeah, I think that's really interesting about him.
I can't wait for these documentaries. Like I said, we talked about 4. So we'll have you guys see the chat 2 this week and then 2 next week. He's got 2 more coming out next month. So all of these are going to be really great on True Royalty TV. I can't wait. I love a royal documentary.
Oh, me too. There was one in the UK on this week about Balmoral, and oh my God, I watched the whole thing. It was just
What's
so
that
good.
on?
It was Channel 5. I don't know what the BBC.
I was going to say, what's that?
It's literally just called Channel 5. They have way less channels here, and they all have really simple names. It's like BBC 1, BBC 2, ITV, ITV2, Channel 4, Channel 5.
Okay.
And like Dave. There's one called Dave, and like that's it.
Oh, I knew about BBC obviously and ITV, but I didn't know about like just Channel 5. That's so old school and regal. I love it.
Yeah, it's cool.
I'm sure I can find it somewhere, but these documentaries that he was talking about for True Royalty TV, I'm just so excited because again, I knew she came from this royal lineage, but there's so many fun stories in there that I think people are going to be really, really into it.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
Well, thank you, Molly, for another fun episode of Royally Us. I feel like this week we've decided that everyone loves a little bit of fame.
Absolutely, myself included.
Right.
You know, follow me on Instagram. I had to plug my own thing in the middle of this episode.
Yes, I love it.
We're all just fame monsters here.
At everyone
Royally
has
Us.
one of these and an Instagram. We're all just trying to hustle. Okay. Yeah. So there's no offense to me gain.
Yeah, right. Like, please let her live.
Definitely. All right. Well, thank you, Molly. And guys, make sure to subscribe to Us Weekly's YouTube channel to check out Royally Us every Wednesday right here.